Well, I'm the Artemis sample curation lead, and I'm happy to give you all an update on where we are with sample return and curation for Artemis 3. Next slide, please. Well, we all know how incredibly important lunar curation has been for Apollo, which is the gift that keeps on giving, because these samples have been so carefully and meticulously curated. Equally for Artemis, the goal is to preserve the samples from the time of the collection on the lunar surface all the way to their return to Earth and then arrival at JSC Curation. Once they arrive, we will carry out the initial sample characterization and then develop the preliminary examination catalog, which will have information for the lunar science community, so you guys, to request the best possible samples to address your respective scientific studies. And then ultimately, we will curate, protect, and meticulously document and allocate these future Artemis samples so we can enable groundbreaking scientific studies of the moon and the solar system. Now, my job as the sample curation lead starts long before the samples are returned with the pre-mission planning phase, so thinking through all the different mission phases and sample transfer points for the samples, and supporting the active mission during the sample collection and on the lunar surface. So that means helping to facilitate methods to collect the samples, and as well as monitoring and recording contamination and degradation, and then working through the recovery of the samples on the recovery vessel when the samples will be transferred into the custody of Curation. And that is, of course, a group effort. So I'm working very closely with Barbara Cohn and Andy Needham, and the three of us represent the voice of the samples, and we're making sure that all their needs are met during all the different stages of the mission. Once the samples are at JSC, as I said, we'll do the PE, and then I will move on to plan the next sample return mission, while the Artemis collection curator will take care of the long-term preservation of the samples and then start the allocation process. All right, next slide. So here's the Artemis 3 sample concept of operation, or called end-to-end sampling CONOPS. That document works through all the operational concepts to ensure sample integrity is maintained at all the different stations of the missions. It integrates a lot of different stakeholders that are involved in the surface mission planning efforts. And this has been a huge undertake with over 60 points of contacts. This document has already led to two other documents, which is the Moon to Mars Sample Management Requirement document and the Curation Interface Definition document. And those will assure that sample integrity is maintained and that tools and containers from the different vendors can safely interface with the samples and the curation equipment. And so, of course, the purpose and the goal for all these documents is to maximize the science of these samples that we're returning. Next slide. Now we're also making, headway when it comes to the recovery side of the mission. Next slide. We were part of the last underway recovery test for Artemis 2 for 1 day, and used that opportunity to assess the recovery vessel hardware and the space requirements that we will need to build a temporary curation facility. So you can see the vessel in the upper left corner, and below that is the well deck on which Orion will be tied down. You can see Orion here in the middle image, which was the mock-up for that test. And on the right side, on the upper image, you can see that the vessel has a lot of space available that we can utilize to build a temporary curation facility. And that will be composed of a glove box and transport boxes that are all nitrogen purged. Next slide. So once the samples are back at Curation, the Artemis 3 samples will be stored and processed in the current Apollo lab. So we have started to design the new preliminary examination glove box. We're using a modular design to process the samples more effectively. We have considered multiple design options, as you can see in the images below, and they're all considering optimizing the fit within the existing facility. They contain multiple processing stations to optimize the workflow requirements. And so we landed in the end on the finalized version, which is an extended I-shaped glove box that you can see on the far right. And that one has an imaging and documentation station at the end. If you go to the next slide, which I think is my last slide. So that's my summary slide. I'm not going to read it. You can screenshot it, whatever. I just want you guys to know that we are running really fast and we're planning really hard. The curation labs are getting ready as we speak to receive the Artemis 3 samples. We're making really good progress on all the different end-to-end CONOPSes, whether it's the sampling CONOPS and the recovery ConOps. We're tracking all the different transfer points, and we also started working on the curation strategy plans and the preliminary examination plans. And with that, I'm going to stop here. Thank you.